If you're ready to explore the Hebrew roots of your Christian faith, then grab your Bible and let's get started.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome back on this Sabbath day for the Sabbath day teaching. Praise Yehovah for another day that He has given us to be able to take our hands to the plow and do the work of the kingdom. Now, we are continuing in the book of Acts. We are at Acts chapter 25. And again, I want to remind you, we are focusing on the legal proceedings against Paul. We've been on this journey since Acts chapter 22 when he had to go before the Sanhedrins. Now, we are now in 25 where he is still remaining in the custody of the Roman authorities. This chapter highlights the political maneuvering between the Jewish leaders and the Roman officials, revealing the complexities of justice in the Roman system. Paul, his unwavering faith and his strategies to appeal to Caesar set the stage of his journey to Rome. This is fulfilling Elohim's plan for him to testify before the highest authority. Welcome to Reconcile the Kingdom, where we are working towards growing in harmony of the whole word of truth. My name is Patrice Robinson, and I'm thankful for all of you again who is joining me live, and of course those who will be joining me on the replay. So this book of Acts that we're on, we have been studying verse by verse for quite a while. And so again, we're on Acts chapter 25, and we only have 28 chapters in Acts. So we're coming to a close soon. And this closing of Acts is mainly about the legal proceedings of Paul and where he's going to end up. And we're going to continue on to the study and find out more about the situation of Paul, understanding his teaching, and hopefully this book of Acts study is setting some foundation for you for the remaining letters throughout the New Testament. I want to take the moment to thank all returning subscribers for your support because it is greatly appreciated. Thank you for making comments. Thank you for sharing the link. Thank you for the thumbs up. Because of you, you are a very good support system to help grow the ministry and to reach the nations, teaching biblical doctrine and not the tradition, what we call dogma of men. Thank you, and I greatly appreciate you. And I also appreciate the new subscribers, and I want to welcome you to the family. Thank you for your support. Thank you for joining us on this journey and allow me to be before you. This is also very appreciated. I do not take this lightly at all. So I'm just going to encourage you to do the same things that I spoke about the returning subscribers, of how sharing the link, giving a thumbs up, making those comments, all those type of things allows the algorithm to move. And that's what we want it to move, constantly moving so it can reach all those called out ones, those who don't even know that they called out, and they will hit the link, and then they will understand what they've been waiting for, what they've been needing for all this. I remember when I was on my journey, and I wasn't looking for this. You've heard about my testimony. I wasn't even looking for this. I did not know what I needed because I did not know what I needed. But He knows what we need at all times. Now, I also want to acknowledge visitors. I appreciate you coming in and learning and watching periodically throughout the times, and some of you who subscribe and some of you don't. But I'm hoping right now that you're ready. That you're ready to join the family that does not mind searching the scriptures, a family that does not mind challenging the religious teachings that we have been under for hundreds of years. A family that's open to become a lifetime student of the Bible, a family that's ready to explore the Hebrews of your Christian faith, and not afraid of studying the word verse by verse so that you will get an understanding of what is written. And you can join this family easily. All I ask you to do is hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button. Don't forget the bell, because the bell is important because it lets you know when I'm live, any announcement or any updates that come from this ministry. as you heard me speak previously, to all the return subscribers, to the new family members that's joining into this journey with us, making comments, whether you agree or disagree, is welcome. Encourage. Even if you disagree, make it respectful. Now, sharing the link and thumbs up is also important. Now, follow me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram. Especially Instagram is one of those set aside. It's all about, mainly about the biblical calendar, because I need to make sure everyone stays on Yehovah's calendar so you can get ready for Passover, first fruits, unleavened bread, feast of wheats, all these other feasts that we are to honor and respect until he comes, where we can actually act them out when the new temple is built, or the tabernacle of David is built. So I'm encouraging you to follow me there on Pinterest, on Spotify, YouTube, podcast, and of course the Arcade Biblical Studio Etsy is available for all kinds of things, and some new things will be coming into the studio soon. So just watch out. Just go browse in the studio, not on the Sabbath day, and I'm hoping that it is effectively set where the Sabbath day there will be no shopping. But those things are all the ways to support the ministry, including the cash out for monetary, for the love jar. That's available to you. And you can find all the information and all its links in the description box. And you can take a look at that during your own timing, and pray as the Father gives you understanding of who or what ways to support the ministry. Once again, we're in the book of Acts. I'm very excited about completing this book as we continue to move forward. Now, don't want you to forget, at the end of the teaching, you are able to ask questions about what is presented to you today. I encourage, once again, making those comments, sharing the links throughout the teaching. Now, if you have a question, you can still submit those. I will not address the questions until the end of the teaching. And some of the comments, I wait until then too, because I want to make sure that you get the whole concept of things, and not just bits by bits, bites by bites. So right now, before you, you should have your Bible, all the writing utensils that you need, pen, paper, highlighters, and all those type of things. Thank you for those who purchased the Acts workbook and the worksheet, that you have that before you. If you don't have those items, that is fine. Make sure you have a piece of paper before you. So what I'm going to pull up is my worksheet from the book of Acts. Now, what is also important as we are going through this, the workbook, you should also your next page should be similar to this. And that's because after chapter 24, you will do your check-in. The most important part to me in the check-in is, what have I learned from the Messianic community? So that is really important. What have I learned on this journey as we see the followers of the Messiah, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and all those type of things. So that is really important part to me for each check-in, is learning how things work. So let's go over chapter 24 for our overview, and it's basic. So chapter 24 is all about the courting session with Paul versus the Sanhedrins. But I kind of want to narrow that down from not the entire Sanhedrin. So this courtroom to me is about Paul, the governor Felix, and the Sadducees. And the one reason why I am pointing out the Sadducees is because the Pharisees and the Sadducees have two different beliefs. We talked about that in that chapter 22, probably way before that. That the Sadducees is the ones who do not believe in angels, resurrection of dead, or any of those type of things. And of course, we see that information as we continue in the scriptures. Now, I want to point out the reason for the court hearing, that their lawyer, Tertullus, who said Paul was a troublemaker. He was responsible for inciting riots among the Jews and profaning the temple. He also claims Paul leads a dangerous sect, Nazarenes, or followers of the way. So when you're going through Acts, they're called Nazarenes, and they're also called the followers of the way. And this is how you got Christians, because Christian actually means followers of the way, followers of the Messiah. Hopefully you got that piece. Now, Paul openly acknowledges his faith. He's affirming that he follows the way, and he believes in the resurrection of the dead, and belief that divides the Pharisees and Sadducees. Again, this is why this court hearing is all about the Sanhedrins. And of course, everything was working fine until Paul brought the point that for the resurrection of the dead, I am on trial before you today. This is why he's on trial. So the governor postpones a verdict, recognizing that the matter is more a theological thing than criminal activities that's going on. I had no word study to share with you guys and no cross-reference. And we all know that means that I didn't share in the time of the teaching. That does not mean that you do not go through the chapters and do your own word study and your cross-reference, because that's also important for your studies. Because remember, this is just the basic studies that we go through. You need to take it deeper and further on your own. The questions that I actually have one. Are there areas in your life where you are putting off responding to Elohim's truth? Because that's what Paul is doing. This chapter, my application insight, this chapter teaches us the importance of standing firm in faith. Keep it a clear conscience before Elohim and not delaying obedience to his call. This is why we don't put off respond to Elohim's truth. When he tells you to do the work, you do the work. We're giving the direction and the path through the written word. Now, my recommended reading along with this is Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 18 through chapter 15 through 21. Because what you're recognizing is that Paul is not the only one who is facing to be judged by Yehovah's people by murder because of the truth. And of course, that happened to many of the followers of Yehovah, all the way through Yeshua. So that's my recommended reading. I'm going to leave my sheet up for a moment to give you opportunity to ask questions, share, to talk about, discuss on maybe what your key points were, what application that you want to share, what word study you want to share, or you want to even discuss the question that is presented before you. So I'm going to leave it up for a moment. Now, we ended with Acts chapter 24, that Felix decide that Paul is going to remain in custody. And then, of course, if you read that, you will find out why he's remaining in custody. So it's been 2 years. 2 years has passed. This is what 24 ends with. 2 years has passed. Verse 27, Felix was succeeded by Porcius Festus. But because Felix wanted to grant favor to the Jews, he left Paul in prison. He purposely left Paul in prison. And so this is going to take us on to Acts chapter 25, verse 1. Festus, then after arriving in the province, went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea 3 days later. And the chief priests and the leading men of Jews brought charges against Paul, and they were pleading with Festus, requesting a concession against Paul, that he might have him brought to Jerusalem, at the same time setting an ambush to kill him on the way. Festus then answered that Paul was being kept in custody in Caesarea and that he himself was about to leave shortly. Therefore, he said, have the influential men among you go there with me, and if there's anything wrong about the man, have them bring charges against him. After Festus had spent no more than 8 to 10 days among them, he went down to Caesarea, and on the next day he took his seat on the tribunal and ordered that Paul be brought. After Paul arrived, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many and serious charges against him, which they could not prove. While Paul said in his defense, I have not done anything wrong, neither against the law of the Jews, or against the temple, or against Caesar. But Festus wanted to do the Jews a favor, replied to Paul and said, are you willing to go to Jerusalem and stand trial before me on these charges? So now, this first passage that we have read, we have the governor, the new governor, Festus, who goes up to Jerusalem, meet the leaders. So the leaders already have some accusations that have against Paul, and they want Paul transferred to Jerusalem, intending an ambush to kill him on the way. Now, we remember that there were specific Jews who wanted this to happen. This is nothing new of the people who have an opposite thinking of teaching, wanting other people killed. And however, Festus decides to keep Paul in Caesarea and invites the accusers to present their case there. Back in Caesarea, the Jews leaders bring many serious charges against Paul, but they cannot prove them. Paul defends himself, stating he has not committed nothing against the Jewish law, the temple, or Rome. Now, everyone who's been on this journey in the book of Acts, have you found anything against the law, written law, that Paul is teaching? So they want, I should say, Festus wants favor with the Jews because he wants to keep things, no riots, calm. So he won't be going before Caesar with problems. And he asked Paul, is he willing to go to Jerusalem for a trial? But Paul remains firm in his stance. So I'm not for sure if Festus had heard, or maybe he's missing the information of why Paul was actually sent to Caesarea, at least regarding the legal reason, because there was a plot to kill him. And of course, the commander sent him there for legal reasons, but the master, Yeshua, sent him there for a whole nother kingdom reason. Now, we have to remember that the Jews actually had a sect of Jews. We don't know which Jews. We don't know which ones who decided to do this, but they had a conspiracy to kill him. Now, if you remember the conspiracy to kill him, this is the same thing which was the chief priests and elders came alongside with the Jews and to see the council of sinners to murder someone without judgment, because that's against the written law. Now, these are the same people, groups of people, when we're talking about the chief priests and elders. The chief priests and elders are the same ones that paid the Roman soldiers to lie that Jesus' body was stolen by his followers. See, the Sadducees and the elders too seem to continue to get themselves in the bed of sinners. So this is why we had to pay attention who's doing what in the Bible. Verse 10. But Paul said, I'm standing before Caesar's tribunal, where I ought to be tried. This is where I should be tried at. I have done nothing wrong to the Jews, as you also very well know. So Paul is most definitely standing his ground, even with the governor, because you know I have done nothing wrong. You very well know. If therefore I am in the wrong, have committed something deserving death, I'm not trying to avoid execution. But if there's nothing to the accusations which these men are bringing against me, no one can hand me over to them. I appeal to Caesar. Then, when Festus had to confer with his council, he answered, you have appealed to Caesar? To Caesar you should go. Once again, Paul firmly refused to go to Jerusalem, standing on the fact that he has a right. He has a right. He knows his rights, which is important. It's the fact that Paul not only knows the oral law with the Pharisees change, the written law, and also Romans law. So he's working all three as we see in this teaching on today, actually since 22. He asserts his innocence, declaring that if he has done anything worthy of death, he does not seek to escape punishment. But since there's no evidence against him, no one has the right to hand him over to the Jews. Romans law. Recognizing the political pressure, Paul exercises his right as a Roman citizen and appeals to Caesar. Roman law. Festus, after conferring with his advisors and grants Paul's request, set a stage for his journey to where? To Rome. Now, we remember the charges that the lawyer, or some people might say the advocate of the council of the Sanhedrins, that Paul is a troublemaker. He's reciting these riots among Jews and he's profaning the temple, in which all of this, and that he's dangerous. There's a dangerous sect called the Nazarenes or followers of the way. Now, where's the rest of them? Where's the sect itself? Now, all of this is what they say deserves punishment. Paul never denies, and he openly acknowledges that he is a follower of the way. He does follow the Nazarene. He does follow the Messiah that once died but lives. So all of this resurrection of the dead divides the people, the Jewish people, because the sects, Pharisees and Sadducees, have different beliefs systems, and not all of them together standing on the written word, like the time of King David or the time of King Solomon. This is why Paul said, if he is guilty, sentencing me to death, I've done nothing wrong, and I will accept the death penalty. If you're learning something though today, I greatly appreciate you hit that subscribe button, because we continue through the scriptures. There is no way for people to continue to walk in the kingdom lost. There's no reason for it. There's no reason to not understand what is written and making up things and going by just your thoughts. We have to go by what is written. This is the reason why Yeshua said the Torah, the prophets, that doesn't go away into the new heaven and new earth. So take a moment and hit that subscribe button and join us as we continue through the journeys of the scriptures. Verse 13. Now, when several days has passed, King Agrippa and Bernice arrived in Caesarea, paying their respects to Festus. And while they were spending many days there, Festus presented Paul's case to the king, saying, there is a man who was left as a prisoner by Felix. And when I was in Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews brought charges against him, asking for a sentence of condemnation against him. I replied to them that it's not the custom of the Romans to hand over any person before the accused meets his accuser face to face and had opportunity to make his defense against the charges. So after they had assembled here, I did not delay. But on the next day, took my seat on the tribunal and ordered, tongue-tied, that the man be brought. When the accuser stood up, they did not begin bringing any charges against him of crimes that I suspected. But they simply had some points of disagreement with him about their own religion, about a dead man, Yeshua, whom Paul asserted to be alive. This is the reason. And being at loss how to investigate such matters. I asked whether he was willing to go to Jerusalem, stand trial there on these matters. But when Paul appealed to be held in custody for the emperor's decision, I ordered that he be kept in custody until I send him to Caesar. Then Agrippa said to Festus, I also would like to hear the man myself. Tomorrow, he said, you shall hear him. So now we have King Agrippa, which is what the last king that comes from Herod, and his own sister Bernice visit Festus in Caesarea. During this day, they had this whole discussion. What the Jewish leaders want, what Paul wants, what is going on. Most of all, there's no evidence. So I'm pretty sure that Festus must have thought that Paul really did something wrong. He said crimes that I suspected was not there. Instead, this dispute is about religious matters, especially because Paul speaks of the resurrection of Yeshua, the resurrection of the dead, which helps you understand this is the Sadducees here in court. Festus admits he was unsure how to handle the case, especially as Paul had appealed to Caesar. And Agrippa becomes curious and desires to meet with him. So on the next day, verse 23, when Agrippa and Bernice came amid great pomp and entered the auditorium, accompanied by the commanders and the prominent men of the city, at the command of Festus, Paul was brought before them. And Festus said, King Agrippa, and all you gentlemen present with us, you see this man about whom all the people of Jews appealed to me, both in Jerusalem and here, shouting he ought to know not live any longer. But I found that he had committed nothing deserving death. And since he himself appealed to the emperor, which is Caesar, I decided to send him. Yet I have nothing definite about him to write to my Lord. Therefore, I have brought him before you all, especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after the investigation has taken place, I have something to write. For it seems absurd to me in sending a prisoner not to indicate the charges against him as well. So we have the governor speaking before all these people that include King Agrippa, that include high-ranking officials, included prominent men in the city. He is having this discussion, explaining, although the Jews leaders have accused Paul of serious crimes, he has found nothing deserving death. Since Paul has appealed to Caesar, Festus must send him to Rome. But he lacks specific charges, so he needs something to write down. He has to report something to the emperor. He opens that having Agrippa examine Paul, he would gain clarity on what to write. To acknowledge sending a prisoner without clear accusations wouldn't be reasonable. Just as Pilate found no fault in Yeshua, both Felix and Festus found no legitimate charges against Paul. However, the real issues lies in the teaching itself. That's the issue. It lies in the teaching itself. Remember, if you go back to Luke chapter 23, Pilate said to the chief priests and to the crowds, I found no basis for charges against this man, speaking about Yeshua. But they kept insisting. He stirs up the people all over Judea in his teaching. His teaching. He began in Galilee. Now he's going to come all the way here. His teaching. It has always been about teaching. Truth, lies. What is written, what is custom, what is tradition. False doctrine or biblical doctrine. Yehovah words or men words. The R teaching. Things that you chomp up, put together, oppress men. Do you know teaching and doctrine of false doctrine that people put in exegesis and eisegesis? The Bible is what oppresses people. Acts 25 highlights the political and legal complexities surrounding Paul's trial, as well as Elohim's sovereignty and directly directing Paul's path to Rome. Despite false accusations and pressure from Jewish leaders, Paul boldly defends himself. He defends himself and exercises his right as a Roman citizen to appeal to Caesar. Once again, we have the oral law, we have the written law, and we have Roman law in these discussions. Paul is following the written law, and he does nothing wrong by following the written law. This is a clash between the oral law and the written law. Again, this is all about the teachings. This chapter sets the stage for Paul's testimony before King Agrippa, high-ranking officials, prominent men of the city, and ultimately his journey to fulfill the master's plan in Rome. Now, if you can take it and understand it, this chapter helps us to know that we're supposed to stand firm in our faith, even in false, these false teachings, these false accusations, and even in the midst of the trial. Paul remains firm. How many of us can remain firm on what is written, not what is made up, not what is put in the Bible, like Easter and Christmas, and those are just holidays, but not keeping the feast or the Sabbath day and all those things according to what is written? How many of us can stand firm? Can we stand firm like Paul? We should trust in Elohim's plan and boldly proclaim the truth, knowing that he is in control. Let this chapter encourage you to seek wisdom, remain steadfast, and use every opportunity to witness for the kingdom. This is a journey that we will always be on. This is the journey that we will continue to be on. Now, I don't see any questions or any comments or anything that I need to address at this moment, and that's fine. You can send those through the replay. But I'm also encouraging you to join me on Tuesdays, because we're continuing in the book of Leviticus. We're just on chapter 8. You need to, is it chapter 8? It's probably chapter 8 that we are. Because you need to know the foundation of the teaching. How do you understand Paul's letters? Because he speaks much about sacrifices. He speaks about separating yourself and don't touch the unclean thing. You don't know all of that until you go through the Torah. So join me on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock p.m. as we continue that study. And don't forget to join me next week. We'll be in Acts chapter 26. And I am looking forward to moving on to season 5 of What Yeshua Taught. Continue your journey with me. I welcome you. I encourage you. Do not leave here without hitting that subscribe button, because I know many people are not teaching the biblical doctrine. But that's what I'm called to do. And I know my purpose. I'm hoping you know your purpose. I hope you know your calling and that you will stand fast and firm on that. May Yehovah bless you and keep you. May Yehovah shine his face on you and give you his favor. May he shine his face towards you and give you his peace. All in the mighty name of Yeshua. Have a blessed few days. If it's the Father's will, I will be seeing you on Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Thank you for joining me on today.